Hello and welcome to Max Kelly's Vegan Cooking Show. On today's episode, we're going to be making a fresh pasta dish using one of my new favorite ingredients, robs. So most people have heard of broccoli rabe, which is a specific plant, but all brassicas produce these flowering stalks with tender leaves in the spring after overwintering, and they're all edible and delicious. Today, we're making a classic dish from the Puglia region of Italy with a fresh pasta called orecchiette and sautéd greens. The dish traditionally uses broccoli rabe, but I'm using a variety of rabes from my garden, and you can really make it with any hearty leafy greens you have available. To start, we're going to make a simple pasta dough. Measure out 300 grams or about 2.5 cups of semolina flour. It's important to use semolina because it has a high protein content and a unique milling process that give the finished pasta a proper texture. Add a couple pinches of kosher salt to the flour and stir it in, then add 150 grams or just under 2/3 of a cup of room temperature water. Stir that all together and work the mixture with your hands until all the flour is hydrated and a stiff dough starts to come together. It might take a while, but try to resist the temptation to add more water. You need a pretty dry dough. Once the bowl is clean, move your dough to a clean surface and knead for about 8 minutes. When it first comes together, it will feel almost like wet sand, but as you go, the texture should smooth out considerably. It will be a lot more resistant than typical bread dough, and it will get even stronger as you go, but try to muscle through and you'll wind up with a smooth, firm, finished dough. Cover the dough with a damp cloth and let it rest for about 15 minutes. After it's rested, divide the dough into 4 equal pieces. Roll one piece into a thin rope a little over a foot long and about the diameter of your thumb, and using a bench scraper or a sharp knife, cut the rope into 1/2-inch pieces. Use a butter knife to press firmly on one of the pieces, then drag it toward you along the work surface until it curls up into a long, thin seashell shape. This shape is known as a cavatelli. To make orecchiette, gently unfurl the shell and nudge the back with your fingers so that it bulges out and resembles a little ear. Transfer the shaped pasta to a sheet pan or plate lightly dusted with flour, and repeat with the remaining dough. Once you've finished shaping them, cover with a damp cloth and set aside until you're ready to boil them. Now let's prep our other ingredients. We have a small lemon here. Just give it a good wash and set it aside for later. For our greens, just give them a rough chop. You're aiming for pieces that are similar in size to the pasta. We also have 6 large cloves of garlic. Start by giving one an extra fine mince or even putting it through a garlic press and set that aside for later. Give the rest of the garlic a rough chop. Finally, we need some hot peppers. I'm using oil-packed Calabrian chilies here and just giving them a quick mince, but you can use dried chili flakes instead. We're also going to toast some breadcrumbs to use as a topping. Heat a small pan over medium heat and add a tablespoon of olive oil. Once that starts shimmering, add about 1/2 cup of breadcrumbs. I'm using panko here, but traditional store-bought or homemade breadcrumbs are fine too. Give those a stir until the oil is evenly distributed. Then add the minced garlic from earlier, a pinch of kosher salt, and any herbs or spices that you want to add. Adjust the heat to keep the breadcrumbs from burning, and stir frequently so that they brown evenly. Once you reach a nice golden brown, transfer the breadcrumbs to a small bowl and set aside. Now it's time to prepare our greens. Heat a large sauté pan over medium heat and add 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Once that starts shimmering, add your garlic and start stirring. Adjust the heat so that the garlic is lightly bubbling but doesn't start to brown too quickly. And once the smell of raw garlic dissipates, add in your chilies. Season with a little salt and black pepper, and when the garlic starts to turn a very slightly golden color, add your greens and give everything a good stir. Toss the greens until they just start to wilt, then add about 1/4 cup of cooking wine, light vegetable stock, or water. Cover the pan and lower the heat, and let everything steam for a minute or 2. Uncover the pan and give one of the stems a taste. If it's tender with a slight remaining crunch, shut off the heat and set aside. Now let's cook the pasta in a large pot of boiling water. You don't need to salt it quite as much as you would for dry pasta because there is some salt in the dough, but add a few pinches for good measure. Add your pasta and give it a stir to keep the pieces from sticking together. After about a minute, the water should start to come back to a boil and you'll see the pasta starting to float. Once most of the pieces are floating, cook them for another 2 minutes or so, stirring occasionally. Drain and transfer to the sauté pan with the greens and turn the heat back on low. Take about a quarter cup of the pasta cooking water and stir in a teaspoon of miso paste. This is optional, but it really helps round out the flavor and adds a nice savory depth. Add the miso water mixture to the pan and give it a stir. Grate the zest of the lemon into the pan and give everything a taste and season it as necessary. Squeeze in a bit of lemon juice for some nice bright acidity, give everything another stir, and cut the heat. Plate your pasta, add a bit of fresh black pepper if desired, and top with the toasted breadcrumbs. Enjoy! If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like, consider subscribing to the channel, and let me know in the comments section if you have any questions or you'd like to see any other specific recipes in the future.